Actually, three things that I want you to explain.
Okay.
If your work is a little different from your proposal, then explain it. Uh,
Okay.
just 2 seconds.
Okay.
And then code explanation. Usually, you don't need to explain all the codes in details. But
Mm-hmm.
if there is any codes, although covered in class, but you made it a little different, then I want you to explain it.
Sure. Sure.
Number one. Number two, if you use the codes never covered in class, but you adapted from anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
then you can explain it.
Sure. Sure.
Code explanation not required, but for you to get more credits,
Okay.
uh, you can take that privileges.
Sure.
Number three, any lessons learned if you have.
Okay. Yeah.
And I will give you the screen share permit,
Okay.
so you can take it.
Sure. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Great. So my application hasn't changed from what I did in the proposal. I said in the proposal I was going to do the a small bot, right, that interacts with the OpenAI API. Uh, and it hasn't changed much. I had four things in mind, just for your question. I had four things in mind in the semester proposal that I would actually do these four things. I was able to do three things, but I wasn't able to do the Apple Watch sensor. It was a little bit difficult. It needed a lot of personal information interacting with but I was at least able to do this much. So let's dive right into the project. My project is called Dr. Bot, and it's basically, I will give you a brief introduction and I'll move to the application directly. Uh, Basically, bots are popular these days, right? We have bots everywhere, but they're not personalized, basically. And people are trying to make a personalized bot based on the new language models, the AI, and all these popular things that are going on right now. So I wanted to make it something personalized, but that can also answer your question on your health, on your issues, read your profile, right? And based on your basic information. Uh, so I want to dive right into the system architecture. So to answer your first question, my project is not different from the proposal. Uh, my my bot will maintain like a simple three-layer architecture, right? Application layer, data layer, and presentation layer. In the application layer, uh, basically what I have is in the application layer, I have the code that calls the API and manages the view. And in the data layer, I use SQLite database to store the credentials. And in the presentation layer, which are basically our views that you interact and see. And in the implementation, I do the OpenAI key setup. I have three views, which I will explain during my app. And I have a message view, which is basically like static, mostly like, for the purpose of making it beautiful. So let's jump right into from my VN. So I'm remoting into my Mac here. So the first implementation is the login view. So login view is the first screen that you see when you open the app. And here you can actually either log in if you have already logged in, or you can sign up. For example, let's try with something. And to answer your second question, actually, I want to answer your second. So in the class, you actually taught us how to use the storyboard, right? And the navigation controller and the storyboard. I'm using the Swift UI view here, files, because it's easier and it's more like industry practice these days than the actual storyboard controllers. The code is easier to maintain, and I also mentioned that in my report saying why I chose the Swift UI view. Basically, it's more easier to write the code, copy the code from one place to another, etc., etc., etc. Debugging purpose, right? On what's happening. So that is different from what you taught in the class. So Swift UI view versus the storyboard. So the first screen is the username and password, like basically your login screen. So if I put anything like something that is not registered, I want to just try something, and it says username or password is incorrect. But you can actually sign up, and let's say I'm just going to do a simple sign up. Give it a password. I can go back and use that same one and actually log in now. So when you hit the sign up button, it actually takes you to the sign up view, and this and the username and password that you give in the sign up view is stored in the database. And then in the login view, hopefully it doesn't freeze on me this time. Okay, in the login view, it actually saves when you hit the button login. It actually checks for credential in the database. Like for example, is credential valid? Here it checks if the username and password is present in our database, which are defined by the core data class and core data objects here from the entity. And you can see the entity in in the bot data model here. Okay, so login view and sign up view. So once you have the valid username and password, you can hit login, and it will take you to the actual chat view button, chat view window. Here, the bot actually first tries to collect your basic information. So for example, here I will say 25. What's your gender? Male. Current weight 144. And 5, 7. Let's say. And then it says, how can I help you today? Let me also open the chat view here. Okay. Here it's running code from 15 to 19, and it's actually going through each questions to collect your basic information. Now I want to try something like if it will answer just about anything. I want to ask something like, what is cybersecurity? And it says, I'm sorry, I'm a personal health assistant. Please feel free to ask health-related questions. So what the chat view does is it actually notifies the OpenAI API with all the chats access. And to run the OpenAI API, what I did is first I set up the key in the OpenAI, my OpenAI account. I created a key, and I'm using that key in well, it's not safe to share the key, but for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to share it. My config view has the key, and when we ask the question, it actually calls the OpenAI utility class, and it calls creates a OpenAI client and sends the message and calls the API. To call the OpenAI API, I use a package called OpenAI Swift, which is also not mentioned in your class on how to do the package dependency download, but I needed that for my app. So here you can see OpenAI Swift. I can add any more packages. For example, I tried 2 packages, one from the guy called Adam Rushi and one from Swift Almanac. I think they are the same, just this guy copied more information from the original one. But this was not in the class. So, but I needed that for my project. So the interesting part here is it starts by greeting, and it actually records all the information and only tries to direct the chat to the health of personal health pretty much, because in the user message it's recording the age, gender, current weight, height, and usually making it a part of the question that you're asking the Open API. So now let's try to ask something related to the health, right? So give me 2 pointers on falling asleep faster. Let's see what the chat does. Okay, great. Right, to fall asleep, something. It gives the answer. And this answer is generated from the OpenAI client when it calls the send chat API here. So that's my app. So the next thing is the lessons learned. So I want to talk to lessons learned from my report. So the critical skills are basically, I think my number one was the how to debug in Xcode IDE and Swift code. That was my number one skill that I learned. I never used Xcode before or Swift code. I was never exposed to it. And I found it very interesting. They have a lot of libraries, they have a lot of things. And prompt engineering. The prompt engineering was very important for me in terms of how to direct the conversation of the bot towards the health. The SQLite database, still don't know a lot about SQLite database, but it was a very important learning for me on how to do the basic database operation on the SQLite database, like create, update, or delete any entities, etc. And of course, exposure with the OpenAI APIs, how to call the APIs, right? For example, you also had API calls for the sensor data, pictures, etc., etc. I try to use the similar concept here, but calling the OpenAI API. And that's it. Questions?
Wow, it's very interesting, and I think it is excellent.
Yeah.
I think you explained almost all in detail.
Okay.
And one big plus to you is that you brought in on your own the new idea of using OpenAI, which is currently very, very
Yes.
hot in everywhere.
Yep.
So I think you made it a really great contribution for that. Tell me, for example, as you started using OpenAI on your iPhone apps developments, uh, I know you started it, but from your the beginning level of experience, how much of that you can uh, uh, forecast or maximize the benefit from OpenAI?
I think this is the technology that's going to take take our perception of everything into next level, the AI into next level. We are using OpenAI in everything. At my work personally, I think we're developing Copilot on everything, pretty much. How to
Yeah, okay.
understand the natural language, how to process text, how to generate images, everything. Um,
For example, I think one of the last uh, uh, lecture from me, uh, the map and locations, and on that uh, application, we used finding uh, the similar uh, the points of interest near me.
yeah.
That is given is already cooked.
Mhm.
We simply use it, but how can we combine that to OpenAI so that we can find a uh, little more or a little uh, better in intelligence,
Yeah.
something like that. Do you have any idea?
So, so everything in the generative text is pretty much dependent on how you prompt and how the model understands it, pretty much. So the more data you feed, more a better answer it's going to give. But there are more concepts to it. It's complicated, right? Like hallucination. What if it gives us a wrong answer or a not desired answer? The key is basically training the model. Like for example, in the OpenAI, you can actually create your own assistants. Like I tried, for example, assistant, etc., etc. Right? here you can actually upload your own files, own data in the JSON or anything, and then you can actually train it to answer something that's very related to you only. Like for example, if you want to use location data, right? You may have to train the model with that location data, and location data is something, it's really real time, right? And the models are trained, I think,
So you can build your own model.
own custom, yeah, own
Uh,
custom model
that is a
for
big point.
real time data. For example, if you ask for a stock price, the model won't have data because it's real time, right? Now, how to integrate that into, maybe you need to call some of other APIs if the user is asking about the stock data and combine it with the generative text, then give the answer, right? There are many ideas actually. I am actually trying to use my bot to read the location plus the health data from the Apple Health, which we need to import the health kit library. I tried that, but it didn't work, so I put it aside rather than disrupting my app. Uh, so it's also very interesting. It can actually read all your Apple profile, your health profile, your workout details, everything, and actually take it. And then here it's using the chat completion API, which is basically just it only gives you text back.
Right.
But there are a lot of APIs that can give you images, coding, right? Coding answers, and you can specifically train those models yourself by giving the real-time data, for example, research papers, etc., etc. But I think, it's going to grow a lot.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Mm.
Uh, you did a good job, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to post this to
Yeah.
the class so that other students may be
Yes.
uh, positively influenced.
Sure.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Bushan, and I wish you
Yeah.
have a
I'm
good
going to
summer.
check in the code with my Open API key. I paid for the key, but for the purpose of the class, I'm going to check in with it. Usually, it's not from the cybersecurity perspective. We usually don't check,
Right, yeah.
but I'm going to, I mean, chip it with the homework anyway. And later on, I will just change my key on the API side so that it doesn't work
Right,
anymore.
right. Not
Cool.
a problem.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you so much.